Hey everyone! Today we're diving into a really powerful and honestly often overlooked connection, how a child's breathing can dramatically affect their brain. It's a link that might just completely change how you think about common childhood behaviors. Let's get into it.
So let's start with a really big question. When you see a kid who's struggling with attention, or maybe acting out, what's our first thought? Usually it's something about discipline or psychology, right? But what if the root cause is something else entirely? What if it's not actually behavior at all, but breathing?
This quote, man, it really gets to the heart of the story we're talking about today. It's about a young boy named Ridge. His family was told he had behavioral problems, but the real issue was something physical, something hidden in his sleep. His story is the perfect way for us to start to understand this much bigger and often missed issue.
All right, so that brings us to our first big idea. We have all these labels we use for kids who are struggling, a bad sleeper, hyperactive, inattentive, but sometimes those labels can actually hide what's really going on, a deeper physical problem that needs a medical fix, not a behavioral one. Okay, so the official medical term for this is sleep disordered breathing, or SDB for short. And you should know, it's not just one thing, it's a whole spectrum. On one end, you might have something that seems harmless, like chronic snoring. But on the other end, you have something much more serious, like obstructive sleep apnea, where a child literally stops and starts breathing over and over all night long.
And here's what makes this so tricky. It's a hidden condition. Unlike a fever or a scraped knee, SDB isn't obvious at all. Kids with it often look totally healthy during the day. And that's why so many people, parents, teachers, even doctors, can miss it completely.
So you might be wondering, how do we know this is a real problem? Well, let's dig into the science. Because researchers have been building a really powerful case for over 20 years now, showing that for a developing kid, SDB is anything but harmless.
What's so interesting here is how you can literally watch the evidence just stack up over time. It really started getting attention back in 2002 when Dr. Chervin found a clear link between SDB and behaviors that look a lot like ADHD. Fast forward to 2010, Dr. Beebe connected the dots to things like lower IQs and struggling in school. And then, by 2021, a huge review basically confirmed what a lot of people suspected all along. Leaving this untreated can cause some serious long-term risks.
So the bottom line from all this research is pretty simple and pretty stark. A child's brain is this incredible work in progress, right? It needs a steady supply of oxygen and good, solid sleep to wire itself correctly. When SDB interrupts that process night after night after night, well, the brain is what pays the price.
But believe it or not, the damage doesn't just stop at the brain. The constant stress that comes from not being able to breathe right at night, it creates this ripple effect of damage that can spread through a child's entire developing body.
Let's start with the heart. Research has found that kids with SDB actually have higher blood pressure and more inflammation. Think about that for a second. These are warning signs we usually associate with middle-aged adults, and they're showing up in young children. It just goes to show how early this damage can start.
And it's not just the heart. It hits the metabolism too. A study back in 2015 found a link between SDB and insulin resistance, which is a big warning sign for type 2 diabetes. And here's the real kicker. This was true even for kids who weren't overweight. The breathing problem itself was the risk factor.
So why is all this so damaging? Well, the source material uses this really powerful term, suffocation events. Imagine this. Every time a child struggles for air, their body gets a jolt of stress hormones. Now, imagine that happening hundreds of times every single night. You can see how that would put a massive constant strain on a body that's still just trying to grow.
Okay. This next part is maybe the biggest aha moment of this whole thing. It gets to the fundamental reason why SDB is so often missed in kids, and it all comes down to a major difference in how we think about sleep.
Just look at this comparison. When an adult like you or me gets sleep deprived, what happens? We get sleepy, we yawn, we feel tired, right? It's pretty obvious. But kids, it's like they're wired completely differently. They don't slow down, they speed up. They get hyperactive, impulsive, and their emotions are all over the place. They look like they have a behavior problem, not a sleep problem. This is exactly what happened to Ridge. The doctors and therapists who were looking at him saw hyperactivity and aggression. They were using an adult framework to look at a kid's problem, and because of that, they completely missed the real cause, which was in his airway.
So here's the bottom line. You just can't use an adult's ruler to measure a kid's health. Their bodies are different, their sleep is different, and the way they show us something is wrong is different. If we don't change the lens we're looking through, we're going to keep missing what's really going on.
But
And this is a huge but. Here's where the story gets incredibly hopeful. Because even though this problem is really serious, it is also highly treatable. When we can catch and fix STB in childhood, the results can be absolutely life-changing.
Let's check back in with Rich, because once they've fixed his underlying breathing issue, everything started to fall into place. It was like a domino effect. First, his breathing got better. That led to stable sleep. And once he was sleeping well, his behavior normalized. And with all of that out of the way, his real personality and his confidence could finally come out. They got the real kid back.
And the great news is there are real, proven solutions. It's not some mystery. For some kids, yeah, it might be as simple as getting their tonsils out. For others, it might involve things like specialized orthodontics that actually create more room to breathe, or even exercises that strengthen the muscles in their tongue and throat. The key is that this is a solvable problem, and there's a whole toolbox of effective options.
And the payoff for getting this right is just huge. We're not just talking about a kid who behaves better in class. We are talking about actually reversing the damage. Getting treatment early can literally boost cognitive function, bring blood pressure back down to normal, and lower all that inflammation that can cause problems down the road.
So if you remember one thing from all of this, let it be this: that snoring you might hear from a child's bedroom, it isn't always just some cute, harmless little noise. It can be a sign of sleep-disordered breathing, a really serious but totally treatable risk factor for that child's entire future.
So we'll leave you with this question. After everything we've looked at today, from the science to a real kid's story like Ridge's, I think the evidence suggests the answer is a pretty resounding yes. It's a powerful reminder to look beyond the obvious behaviors and ask a deeper question about something as simple and as vital as the air a child breathes.